Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to us here on BSing Sports, part of the BSing Network. I'm Bill. With me, as always, is Ryan. Tim obviously had, well, not obviously for those of you watching now, but Tim had to work late, so obviously he's not here, so that is obvious.
Yeah. For those of you on Spotify that can't see, Tim has to work and he will not be here.
That is correct.
So he did say, and I have the text message to prove it, he's taken all of the underdogs. So I don't know what's gotten to him this week, but good luck underdogs, I guess.
Fortunately, he has sent his picks to his wife. She will be inserting them in the document that Ryan and I are looking at as we go along. So we'll be able to say the picks as we go along, much like they did with me 2 weeks ago or last week, whatever it was, when they did the show without me. So yeah, let's jump right into it. We got a little game after the first segment here, so we'll jump right in. And last night's game, Raiders end up losing at the end of the fourth quarter there to the Rams. They were up 16-3 at one point. Lose to Baker Mayfield led Rams. Wolford comes in and he quarterbacks the first drive of the game for the Rams, and then Baker takes over. Obviously, there were some miscues. He's only been there for 2 days. Baker leads the comeback win there for LA. What do you got on this game here, Ryan? Besides the fact that the Raiders shouldn't have lost.
Our first comment is terrible game, and I agree. For the first 57 minutes, the game was terrible. However, watching the Rams come back, especially with Baker Mayfield, who had been there 2 days, not even, probably knew 6 plays out of the playbook off the top of his head. That was actually something to watch. I enjoyed that part. But this says a lot about the Raiders. This just proves that the Raiders are exactly who we thought they were. They're not a good football team. And they'll find creative ways to lose football games, even to teams that are vastly inferior to them. So that's just it. Bad for the Raiders. And this obviously eliminates pretty much any chance they have of making the playoffs with the juggernauts out east, Baltimore and Cincinnati up north, and, the fact that Kansas City's in their division.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Raiders should have never lost this game. They had been playing pretty decent going into this game, and they just give it up, here at the end. But it leads us into our game, or the game that I'm really going to let you answer the questions, right?
I have no idea what this game is, for those of you
It was on a show on ESPN earlier. I'm not going to say the guy's name because then I could get in trouble for something or another. But I'm going to call the game Baker or. And it's who would you rather have, right? Baker Mayfield or this individual on whatever team that they are currently on. Would you rather have Baker Mayfield on this team or the guy who's on that team? Okay. So the first one I got, very simple, right? You got Baker Mayfield or Zach Wilson. Would you rather have Baker Mayfield or Zach Wilson?
Wilson.
Okay. Baker. Okay.
Let's say, do I have to give an explanation why, or are we just kind of
sure? A quick one is good. Yeah.
I think that there's still time for Zach Wilson to figure it out. I actually think that he's on quite a similar trajectory to Baker. However, I think the only difference between the two is there's still kind of time for Wilson to figure out and get into the NFL. Whereas, Baker Mayfield's in his 5th year and he's kind of who he is at this point.
Okay. Baker Mayfield or Daniel Jones? Keep in mind, Daniel Jones is 19, 29, and 1.
You know what? I would take Baker Mayfield over Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones has obviously made some improvements this year, and not all of the problems with the Giants are on Daniel Jones.
Correct.
They do lack weapons on the outside. They lack weapons not named Saquon Barkley. However, I think Baker Mayfield is a better thrower of the football than Daniel Jones. And in today's NFL, you have to be able to win games through the air. See Justin Fields. So I would take Baker personally.
All right. Baker Mayfield or Mac Jones?
Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is being held back a little bit, actually. One, he doesn't have a real offensive coordinator. Matt Patricia is not by any stretch a real offensive coordinator in the NFL. And then the second piece to that is I just think he's a better quarterback. I know he doesn't quite have the arm strength that Baker has, but I think that he's smarter. He can read the defense better. I think that he's just being held back a little bit. So I'm taking Mac Jones.
Okay. Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff?
Goff
Hands
by
down.
a
Yeah,
mile.
same. Okay. Baker or Heineke?
I'm going to say Heineke. I think that they have similar personalities. Like when you watched Baker play the game yesterday, It's never like a lack of energy with Baker Mayfield, right? Like he's always got high energy. He's always very into the game. Go back years to college, sticking the flag in the middle of the O in the OSU field. Like that's his personality. And I get the same kind of vibes from Heineke. The only difference is Heineke's got the results. So give me Heineke.
Baker or Mariota?
Baker. Mariota's not an NFL quarterback at this point. He's a good backup, whereas like I feel like Baker's probably in the tier above him. Mariota's an okay runner, and he's not a good thrower of the football in the slightest. He's probably one of the worst that I've ever seen. So, Baker.
Baker or I don't really. Baker or Kenny Pickett? Kenny Pickett hasn't thrown an interception in 4 games, so I know the answer is Pickett. But Baker or Kenny Pickett?
It's Kenny Pickett. It doesn't even have anything to do with what's happened in the last 4 games. I think Kenny Pickett's ceiling is just higher than what we know Baker Mayfield to be at this point is. So,
Baker or Davis Mills?
Baker. Davis Mills isn't an NFL quarterback. Like, it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if Davis Mills was out of the league in 2 years. I just don't think that there's any talent there.
Baker or Andy Dalton?
Dalton.
I'm going Baker. Baker's younger. He's got some arm strength. Yeah, he's got some growing pains to get through. I'm going Baker. Which could be legitimate next year. Think about that for a second.
Baker's younger. That's the clear-cut upside in Baker's favor. But at the same time, Dalton has the he doesn't have a great pedigree, but compared to Baker, he has the pedigree. He's won some games. He's been to the playoffs. Granted, he's never won a playoff game, but I think that's more Marv Lewis than him. I'll take Baker just because he's younger, and the older you get, the more you become what you are at this point. So I guess comparatively speaking, Baker might still have some time to figure something. Look at Geno Smith, he's 32 years old, was a 2nd round pick 10 years ago, and he kind of seemed to have figured something out. So I'd rather take the chance on Baker as an NFL GM than Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, that's it for my game. Just wanted to see where your head was. Yeah. All right, so let's jump into our predictions for this week, right? Like I said, Stacy will enter Timmy's. I am first on the docket for getting to pick this week. It is the Baltimore Ravens visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, the Ravens, we've discussed it on our recap show last week, are without Lamar Jackson. George Pickens is throwing tantrums on the sideline for, the Steelers for lack of targets, and the Ravens defense has been playing well. These are things that you put in the document. I just figured I'd say them. I'm taking the Steelers here, and I don't really think it needs to be any kind of conversation like in depth. But the Ravens without Lamar Jackson are not the same Ravens with Lamar Jackson, regardless of the lack of weapons around him. And as I pointed out a moment ago, Kenny Pickett hasn't turned the football over in 4 games, and the offense is looking better regardless of whether Pickens is getting targets or not. So I'm going to go with the Steelers here. They just look like a better rounded team than they did earlier in the season. So I've got the Steelers. Oh, yeah, I got things to do. I'm 36 taking 36.5 is the over-under.
36.5 was the over-under?
Yeah.
What's the spread?
Pitt by 2. So I'm going to take Pitt to cover and them to go stay under 36.5.
Yeah, I'm going to copy and paste everything you said then in terms of the results. I do agree that Pittsburgh wins this game, mostly because they're the home team. I know Baltimore's defense has played pretty well over the last 4 weeks. 3 of the last 4 games, they've allowed 13 points or less. However, you hit the nail right on the head. I don't care that Tyler Huntley is, the Walmart version of Lamar Jackson in the sense that he's also a running quarterback too. However, he's not nearly the thrower that Lamar Jackson is. And when you lack weapons on the outside that the Ravens do, or even in the backfield that the Ravens do, they do ask a lot of Lamar with his arm and his legs. And I just don't think that the arm piece is going to be able to be covered by Tyler Huntley here. So give me the Steelers at home. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. You've got an offense led by, a perennial backup quarterback, and then another one, that's led by a rookie. So I think that there's going to be some growing pains. This is going to be a bad game to watch, but I think that, 16-17 actually is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of where I would take this. I think it's a realistic possibility. I do think Steelers cover, but you know what I mean in the sense that it's kind of one of those low-scoring affairs.
Yeah, I gotcha. It doesn't look like Stacy's on the document to put Timmy's pick in, so we're just going to move on.
Yep.
Next game is the Minnesota Vikings visiting the Detroit Lions. The over under on this is 51 points. I like that, to be honest with you. Detroit, the Lions are favored by 2 points. We had an individual text us earlier in the week, ask us our thoughts on this, and now we get to actually discuss it. So you're up, man.
Yeah, I'm taking the Lions here at home. You know, you look at the records, and this isn't the first time that the Vikings have been disrespected by Las Vegas. They were home dogs to the Dallas Cowboys, and the Dallas Cowboys proved Vegas right and absolutely trounced all over Minnesota. Now, I don't think Minnesota gets trounced by the Detroit Lions. However, when you look at these games that are projected to be high scoring, Minnesota's all offense, you know, very little defense. Detroit's all offense, very little defense. These games favor Detroit because they are not afraid to go score points with the best of them. That's not their issue this year. And when Vegas is telling me that Detroit, the 5-7 Detroit Lions, are home favorites over the 10-2 Vikings, I'm going to tend to lean that they know something that everybody else doesn't. And here's what they know that nobody else does. Over the last 4 weeks, there's a metric that is used very popularly in the world of metrics that we live in, because that's what sports are now, is sabermetrics. It's called DVOA, and it basically measures a team performance versus their strength of schedule. So if they're playing a good, for example, the Lions played Buffalo on Thanksgiving, and that's a good offense. So they don't get hit nearly as hard if they don't play as well on defense, because that's a good offense. The Lions are top 10 in offense and defense in that metric in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And you can tell just by watching teams play that Detroit is clearly playing better football than Minnesota. Minnesota's still coming out with wins, but they're not always pretty. They're finding these gritty ways to win. I could see Detroit opening this game up. So give me Detroit. I do think that they cover, and it's going to go over. I think that this is a shootout here.
All right, yeah, I'm going to copy and paste everything you just said. I also think that this game goes over, the Lions win, and that they cover the 2 point spread here. You really hit the nail on the head here. Is the Lions in the past 4 weeks have looked like a legitimate playoff contention team. And while the Vikings are getting wins outside of the blowout loss to Dallas, they've really been reeling. They've had to play from behind a lot. They're not in charge of any game, and because they're not in charge of any game, you really don't get that 10-2 vibe from the Vikings, and you just don't. Let's keep in mind it's a division rival. The Vikings are going on the road, and I like what the Lions are bringing to the field. Another point to be made is Jamal Williams is kind of starting to take a back seat. DeAndre Swift is starting to take that lead running back role. Now, I don't know if he wasn't in the lead role because he was still slightly injured and they were trying to get him back up to speed or whatever it was, but Jamal Williams was doing really well there for a few weeks. And now DeAndre Swift is taking the bulk of the carries other than on the goal line, which makes sense because Jamal Williams is a touchdown machine. But overall, I think that's best for the Lions anyway. So yeah, give me the Lions. Give me them to cover the 2 point spread. I think they win somewhere in the 6 to 9 point range, and they definitely this game definitely goes over 51 points. Jaguars visiting the Tennessee Titans. It's my pick. That's right. I got Tim over here, but it's mine. So both teams got beat pretty bad last week in embarrassing fashion. Tannehill's expected
worse.
You're a playoff team, right? Tennessee's a playoff team, and you go and you have an opportunity to really hang with the number one team in football right now, and you come out flat. You can't run the football. Your passing, other than the one touchdown, was abysmal. Your defense couldn't stop. They could barely stop the run, and they're such a good run defense. Honestly, I think the loss for the Titans last week was worse than it is for the Jaguars.
I'm going to flip that. I disagree. I think the Jags were favored on the road in Detroit, and in a game, you know, against the worst defense statistically in the NFL, they came out and scored 14 points. The offense looked abysmal. They looked unprepared and they looked unready, whereas Tennessee was just outmatched by a team that was better than them. You know, Tennessee is first in their division, and we always talk about on this show that they are a sleeper contender team. However, they're not in the tier with the Eagles, and they are in first in their division, a large part to the rest of that division being so bad.
That's fair. I just think if you're a playoff team and you're supposed to, again, you're going into the number one overall team in the NFL, you want to put up a fight. You want to show like, hey, if we get in the playoffs, we're actually formidable. We're actually going to do something. they took the Bills to within a field goal, if I'm not mistaken, in their game, but then they come out in Philadelphia and get absolutely trounced. I think the loss is
They got
worse for the
crushed
Titans.
by Buffalo by like 28 points earlier in the season, but they did lose by 4 to Cincinnati.
That's okay. That's the team that I
Yeah.
thought they actually put up a fight to. And listen, we talk about the tiers of teams, right? And right now the tiers are like the Eagles, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, and maybe the Bengals. And then there's that next tier where it's the Titans, the Ravens, and those teams. And there's such a huge gap right now. I thought maybe the Titans would attempt or at least come out and show that they could close the gap, and they did not do that for me at all.
No.
But yeah.
But that being said, who are you picking this game?
Yeah. So both quarterbacks are supposed to play. Traylon Burks still has the concussion from the hard hit he took from Epps. I'm going to take the Titans here. The over-under is 41. Titans are favored by 3.5 points. I'm going to take the Titans. They do not cover the spread. And I don't think this game goes over 41 points. I just don't. I'm looking at a 17-14 type game. 14-10. Yeah, I guess that would be covering, but still, you get my point. I don't think that either offense can get going again. Titans are the better team on paper, and as a result, I think I'm taking the Titans. And I mean, listen, the way I'm saying it is I think I'm taking the Titans. Not I am taking the Titans. I think I'm taking the Titans. They're the home team. Give me the Titans.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Titans too. I'm also extremely uncomfortable with that answer, though, obviously, given the very long pause that I just gave after your answer. I do trust that they're just slightly a better team all around than Jacksonville. I do think Derrick Henry can bounce back after 2 very sluggish games from him. And I do think that Ryan Tannehill will be able to utilize the weapons he has just enough. He doesn't have his number one guy in Treylon Burks, but we've seen Westbrook-Ikini pop off at certain points throughout the season, so very well could happen there too. But just give me the Titans. I do think that I don't think they cover. I do see a 3-point game here, but I do think that they go over. I think that this game definitely goes over that 41 points. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of the higher scoring games on the slate.
Okay. Team that we love to talk about. Philadelphia Eagles visiting New York Giants. Yeah, okay. It's important to note that, well, you know what? You can say it. You're the one that gets started on this one, so fire away, buddy. The over-under, 44.5. Philly is favored by 7. 7 even, not 7.5, which I hate.
Yeah, well, I'm taking the over on that regardless. I don't think Saquon Barkley plays this week. That's just a gut feeling. He did pop up on the injury report, and the way that Brian Daboll worded his press conference at practice today was a little strange, kind of saying he hopes Saquon Barkley plays Sunday with a sore neck injury. Even if Saquon plays, I do think that the Eagles can win by double digits here. However, if he doesn't play, like this game could get ugly really fast. We've said it almost every week on this show that the Giants have been figured out on offense. And once you stop Saquon Barkley, they're 1-3-1 in their last 5 games. That early season Cinderella magic seems to have worn off. So I don't think that that's going to change. Now, it is worth noting, this is a divisional game. And things do get a little weird in divisional games. However, these are not 2 teams that have met yet this year. They do play the Giants again later in the season, in the last week of the season. So I'm taking the Eagles. I do think they cover. And I think that they go over. I think the Giants defense has played well, but I don't think, they'll be able to keep the reins on the Philadelphia offense.
Yeah, when I looked at this game earlier in the week, I was thinking about it. I thought to myself, there's no way it's going to be a shootout, but the Eagles are going to score. I think the Eagles get somewhere between the 35 to 38 point range by themselves. So you're talking giving the Giants the football several times really quickly, because I think the Eagles are going to score quick. So I believe they go over as well. They're just, look, I know the Giants defense has been good, especially the first 9 weeks of the season, but the last few weeks they've kind of gotten exposed a little bit. And it's part of it is because they're on the field so often. When you're on the field is constantly, I think they're averaging 31 or 30 and a half minutes a game that they're on the field, or 31 and a half minutes per game, which I get is like half the game. But your offense has got the amount of how quickly they're getting back on the field is the problem. They're just worn out. And against an offense like the Eagles, where you have so many facets to cover, so much talent to keep track of, I just don't think they're going to be able to hang. I think they win somewhere in the 20 to 24 point range. They win by. And
I think that's a little optimistic. I got like 28-17, 31-17, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I
I'm
do think
I'm
that the
I'm looking
Eagles,
at like a 35-14 game.
yeah, I think that's a little optimistic. Tim asks, who's Barkley's backup? It's Matt Breida. Matt Breida is the one been getting the backfield touches when Saquon Barkley has needed a rest for like the 12 snaps that he's taken off this year.
Yeah. But yeah, I also obviously I think the Eagles cover. It might be optimistic. That's fine. But I called a really, really close game last week against Tennessee for the reasons I said a minute ago about what I thought Tennessee was going to do. And the Eagles broke away from that game super fast. I think it's a similar situation. It's just this time I'm calling it to happen. Let's see. I am up for the New York Jets visiting the Buffalo Bills. Bills obviously at 9-3, Jets at 7-5. Mike White quarterbacking the Jets again. Bills are favored by 10. 43 points is the over/under. I don't see why anybody would say that the Jets are going to win this game, and I'm going to stand strong on that. Now, 10 points is a lot of points to cover, especially in a divisional game. And I know I just said the same thing about the Eagles and the Giants, and the Eagles winning by as many as they are. But the Jets, I think, are a better team than the Giants, and I really believe that. And I don't think the Bills are as good as the Eagles right now. They have not been playing as well lately. Listen, do I think that the Bills and the Eagles are likely the Super Bowl matchup? I would strongly argue that that's probably the case. However, right now the Bills haven't been playing like that caliber team. So I think this is a 7-point game. I still think the Bills win. I do think they get the over of 43 points. Yeah, so give me the Bills to not cover, but to win and the over.
Yeah, I think the Bills win here too. But your opening statement, saying you can't see why anybody would pick the Jets to win. I can. I think that the Jets are a good team. I'm just not picking them to win. There's definitely upset potential here, though. I mean, we've seen Mike White. He for the 8 quarters that he's started, he's played pretty well in 6 of them. So I think that there's pretty good numbers. And especially on the ground, the Buffalo defense, they've given up quite a few rushing yards. I think the last 4 weeks, they're at like almost 140 rushing yards allowed as a team or something like that. So they definitely have a weakness on the ground. However, I just think that the Bills offense, slips us out. What was the over-under on this game?
43. Even. I hate when they do evens, man.
I think it's under. I think it's about a 23-17. That was like the first thing that popped in my mind. So I think that the Jets just don't have enough offense to overcome the Buffalo defense, whereas the Jets defense is very good, but they're facing the Buffalo offense.
So you don't think the Bills cover the 10-point spread?
No, I don't think they cover the 10-point spread and under.
Copy that. The Deshaun Watson-led Cleveland Browns at 5-7, visiting the Joe Burrow-led Cincinnati Bengals at 8-4. 46.5 is the over/under. Cincinnati is favored by 5.5. You're up.
Interesting stat. The Cincinnati Bengals are 0-5 in their last 5 games against the Cleveland Browns. They have not beaten the Cleveland Browns since the last week of the 2019 season. So take that for what it's worth. However, that's going to change this week. I was in no way, shape, or form convinced that the Cleveland offense can do anything. Nick Chubb, the 17 carries for 80 yards against the worst rush defense in the NFL. So even he was feeling the effects of just incompetent and rusty quarterback play from Deshaun Watson, which was bound to happen. Maybe he takes a baby step forward this week, but the guy didn't play football for 700 days. So it's kind of hard to sit here and just continuously bash him for a performance that realistically you should have been expecting to see. So I do think the Bengals break that streak. That streak has to come to an end at some point, right? So I'm taking that here. What was the spread? It was 5.5. I could see them winning by a touchdown. So I'll take that they cover the spread, but that's going to be a high scoring game. Yeah, I'll take the over on the points too. Why not?
I'm right there with you. I think they go over. I think the Bengals cover. Watson made a lot of mistakes last week, and he was bailed out by a really, really great, stellar defensive performance by his team, but also the fact that the Texans are so bad. The Bengals are not bad. Let's put it on the table. The Bengals are not a bad football team. And when you make those mistakes against a good football team, they expose you, and I expect that to happen. You said the thing that I was going to bring up. You have it in the doc here. Is 0-5 in their last 5 games against the Browns. I agree that does in fact change this week. It, I just it's like an anomaly that the Bengals, especially the last 2 seasons, haven't been able to get past the Browns when the Browns have been somewhat disappointing. I know last year they were supposed to be a playoff team with Baker Mayfield at the helm, but at no point in time in that season did they look like a playoff team with Baker Mayfield at the helm.
I know 2 years
This year,
ago they were a playoff team.
that's right. And then this year, Jacoby Brissett, the game that they won earlier in the year, I attest more to the fact that the Bengals played a bad game more than the Browns played a good game. Obviously, the Browns did what needed to be done to win, so good for the Browns. But it just showed that when the Bengals are on, they can expose teams, just like they can be exposed very easily. But for me, I think this is where the streak ends. The Bengals get the win. It's a high scoring game, like you said, and I think they win by more than 5.5 points. I think it's like a 7 to 10 point win. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see 7 points pretty easily.
Biggest spread of the week in this next game. Houston Texans, the bad team I was just talking about, visiting the Cowboys at 9-3, who I have officially put up in that top tier with those other teams. 44 is the over-under. I think Dallas gets there by themselves. Dallas is favored by 17.5.
I think it's your pick first, yeah? Yeah, I just went first.
It is mine. So I just said it. I think they go over. The Texans have a historically bad run defense, and Dallas runs the ball really, really, really well. Really, 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 really well. I don't like him. Ezekiel Elliott's having a really good season. Tony Pollard really exploded onto the scene, and they've been giving him the touches that he deserves. And the 1-2 punch that they have there is absolutely dominant. I think they cover the 17.5 point spread too.
Damn, I would never bet on that.
I would not. I don't want to bet on it, and that's the thing, right? Is in every pool that I've done, I've taken the 17.5 points because that's a huge spread. But the Cowboys put up 34 points in the fourth quarter against the Colts team, who weren't playing terrible at the time. Like I said, they went into that 20-19 in that fourth quarter, and then the Cowboys absolutely exploded for those points. I think I'm going to take them to cover. But listen, if you're listening to me, I'm telling you flat out that if this was a money pool, I would not be taking them to cover, flat out. But for the sake of this, I absolutely could see Dallas covering here. I don't think Dak Prescott's been playing great, but again, that run attack, everything revolves around the run, and it's so good that they could do it. They could do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bill is giving advice that he wouldn't even take himself.
I'm being honest.
Yeah, I agree with the fact that the Cowboys are going to win. I mean, there's not much to talk about. They're just obviously the better football team. Houston is going back to Davis Mills this week. And the real question is, can we watch the Cowboys break the rushing record as a team on Sunday? I'm never, ever, ever going to tell anybody to think that a team is going to cover a 17.5 spread. To me, that's a sucker bet. So I'm not going to say that they cover a 17.5 point spread. Garbage time points are a real thing. But I do think that they go over mostly on one side of the scoreboard. So,
yeah. Okay.
We're going to stop and take this time to tell everybody to go ahead and like this stream right now. If you're on Facebook, if you are watching on YouTube and you are not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. If you are on Twitch, go ahead and subscribe to us there. And if you are on Twitter, if you could just hit a like and a retweet button, all of that is absolutely free and it supports us in every way possible. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you so much. Go ahead and tell your friends about us. Apple Podcasts as well. Our socials are all on at the end of the show. So,
yes, that was a good time to do it. Also, we didn't mention it at the top of the show because I always forget. Thank you to Orphan Rivers for our intro and outro music. We really appreciate it. If you guys haven't had the chance, check Orphan Rivers out on Bandcamp or www.orphan.net, I believe, or org or something like that. Sorry,
just
Scott,
check
I
out
don't remember.
Whoever owns .org and .net, you're going to get a lot, some love there. Just check out both.
Yes. So let's run into the next game, right? We got the Chiefs visiting the Broncos. The Broncos have been such a great team this year.
Yeah, this is another game that's not going to be spent a lot on. This would also probably be, in that double-digit spread range if Kansas City was at home.
Yeah, so the Chiefs at 9-3, Broncos 3-9, 44 is the over under. Kansas City is favored by 9.5 points. It is your go.
Yeah, so obviously I'm going to take the Chiefs. Another thing that doesn't really need a whole lot of explanation. I don't think that they reached the over under though. I do think that Denver's defense is an elite level defense. We're not going to call it anything else. We're going to call a scribe a scribe. Everybody's seen the stat at this point. If the Denver offense would score 18 points every game, they would only have one loss on the season. So that speaks volumes to the level that your defense is playing at, especially at home. And the flip side to that is, at Denver's offense just isn't good. So in combination there, I do think that the Chiefs can win by 10 or more points. So I am taking the over there. However, I don't think that they reach the over under.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what the Chiefs are, right? Chiefs are, and they're going to be a contender every year so long as Andy Reid is there, and for the most part, Patrick Mahomes. Their offense is explosive, it's dynamic. However, the Broncos actually match up really nicely on defense with the Chiefs. So I don't think the Chiefs cover the 9.5 point spread. I've got a 7 to 9 point win, and I realize it's a really small window there. If they get to the 9, but I think the Chiefs win somewhere between 7 and 9. By 7 and 9 points, sorry. But I also think that they stay under the over under 44. For whatever reason, when I saw in my head this score, I saw 24-14, 21-10, 21-13, something in that range. And that's what I think it'll end up being. Do I think that any point in this time in this game that the Broncos will look like they have a chance to win it? No. I just think that the defense is good enough to keep the Chiefs to within 3 scores, and that'll do it. Yeah, so under Chiefs and do not cover the 9.5 point spread. The Carolina Panthers visiting the Seattle Seahawks. 7-5 Seahawks, 4-8 Panthers. 44.5 is the over under. Seattle is favored by 3.5 points. Ryan's game of the week.
I think it's your pick first, though.
It is. So I'll let you touch on the little points here, even though it kind of makes a big deal on the direction that I'm going here. Sam Darnold and the Panthers offense. Sam Darnold and the Panthers offense. I said Dolphins. Sam Darnold and the Panthers offense looked better, significantly better than they've looked the entire season. And for whatever reason, when Sam Darnold is on the field and he's healthy in the Panthers uniform, he looks pretty good. Let's be honest. Until he got injured last year, he was 5-0. So, I mean, I know they're going to Seattle with the 12th man and everything, but the fact that the Seahawks don't really have a discernible running back right now with Kenneth Walker and
DJ Dallas.
This game is screaming the Seahawks should win, but I don't think they do. I've got the Panthers here. I don't think they get to the over under. So I'm gonna go under the 44.5. But I'm going Panthers, and obviously I don't need to say whether or not they cover because they're the underdog.
I'm going to trust Vegas's gut here. I'm going with Seattle at home. I don't think that they cover the 3.5 point spread. Look, Travis Homer's a guy who's been around for a couple of years. He knows the offense, and he was already on the field for third downs and pass catching situations anyway. So he's likely to get the start. He's likely to get a bulk of the touches there for those fantasy guys looking out for waiver wire running backs. Hint, hint. But yeah, I think that Seattle's going to figure it out. I think Geno Smith's been playing too well. I know Carolina's defense has played better since Steve Wilkes took over as head coach. However, Seattle's offense, like I said, their passing offense specifically in this game, I do think that they get it done through the air. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, should cause problems for the Carolina defense. And on the flip side of that, Carolina's offense just put up 20 points against a Denver defense. We sat here and said, they're a really good defense. So I do think that this game goes over. I think that both of these offenses show out, and both of these defenses are very, very bad against the run. Like they're both bottom 10 in the NFL. So where the strength of Carolina has been over the last few weeks is, run the ball a lot and play decent defense. Seattle kind of, does the same thing a little bit, maybe not to the same extent. So I do see great games for both running backs, and I do see a lot of points being scored here. Seattle coming out on top, though, by 3.
All right. All right. Man. So this was my game of the week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are visiting to the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, we know that Brock Purdy is starting for the 49ers. Tom Brady is still Tom Brady, right? Ryan, I'll let Ryan make this first point that he's got in there. Jimmy Garoppolo was not placed on IR yet. Sorry, thanks. Jimmy Garoppolo was not placed on IR yet, which is kind of interesting because they said that he might be able to come back by the time some point in the playoffs to make a run. Listen, I'm not saying Brock. I said this on our recap show the other day, is that Brock Purdy is the exact kind of quarterback that Mike Shanahan wants. Here's the game plan. Here's your reads. Just do what you're told to do, and Brock Purdy will do it. And I do believe that they can be successful with Brock Purdy. On the flip side, you've got the GOAT, the legend, Tom Brady.
It is my pick first. You know that, right?
I do now.
So before Bill makes his pick, thank you very much. I'll take the flip side on that. You do have Tom Brady. The TB does stand for Tampa Bay, not Tom Brady. And the point that I made is this Brady's future team? Is San Fran's Brady's future team? I've mentioned that rumor has swirled around a little bit for some time now. It has resurfaced earlier in the season. And hey, if the 49ers will take him, the way that their offense is built, he could be lethal once again in that offense. However, you hit the nail right on the head. Brock Purdy's first career start. We don't know what he's going to be like, but it's the kind of quarterback or the kind of system where you don't have to ask your quarterback to do too much. You have guys that are just elite with the ball in their hands. So you're truly a distributor in that offense rather than, a quarterback that has to make reads. Shanahan's going to, scheme the guys open that he wants for the certain plays, and they're just going to do their damage with the ball in the hands. I am taking San Fran here. I do think that every number about this game is right. I think it's a 3-point spread. I think the over-under is like 37.5 or something like that.
It's 37 over-under, 3.5 favored the Niners.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tampa I'm taking San Fran for the game. I don't think that they cover, though. That 37 number is so hard to pick over-under against because you look at, Tom Brady-led offenses, you think, to a certain extent they'll figure it out. They haven't been an elite offense this year, but they also haven't really been shut out. Whereas, the 49ers have an elite level defense, top 3 in the NFL. They had 4 consecutive games where they had shutouts in the second half. So only to be spoiled by the Miami Dolphins last week. But I'm taking the over. I do think it goes over.
All right. So the point that I was making is Tom Brady is, the GOAT of his generation. And I like to say that because I don't think he's the best quarterback of all time. It's a conversation we can have another time, but he's definitely the best quarterback of his generation. He has a knack for these games, right? Going on the road and beating a team that he clearly shouldn't beat. And everything is screaming at me to take the 49ers here. Everything in me is screaming to take the 49ers, but there's this little voice in the back of my head that says the Buccaneers are going to win this game. I think that they do go over the 37. I think it's probably a 38 to 41 point range total, obviously. But I'm going to take the Buccaneers. And I could see you shaking your head there because
I would have done the same thing.
Right. And here's my reasoning for, even though they're in San Francisco, as you pointed it out, right? He might want to play in San Francisco, so he might have a reason to play really, really well in San Francisco. And if he does, which I think he will, I see the Buccaneers winning this game. So give me Tom Brady and the Buccaneers in a 425 game against the 49ers in San Francisco. Listen, if Jimmy Garoppolo is starting in this game, I don't feel the same way. But the unknowns with Brock Purdy are what I'm cautious with.
It's the unknown. It's worth noting Nick Bosa didn't practice all week.
I didn't even know that. I was going with Nick Bosa. I just saw that. Okay. Yeah, but it's just the unknowns with Brock Purdy. When you have he's a rookie quarterback, you You don't know that much about him outside of what he did last week and his short career in college. And again, I said he's one of the kind of quarterbacks that Mike Shanahan loves because he'll just do what you tell him to do. I just don't think it's going to be enough. So I'm going to unconfidently go with the Buccaneers here to come away with a victory. Dolphins Chargers. Dolphins visiting the Chargers. Dolphins at 8-4.
This game is why I made it a point that I had to pick first last game because I was confident in my San Fran pick. I have no idea who I'm picking this game.
Dolphins at 8-4. Chargers at 6-6. 52.5 is the over/under. By far the most this week. Miami is the favored team by 3 points. Before I answer this, you already have it on the document. Thank you very much. I was asking if Mike Williams was back. The absolute dynamic that Mike Williams brings in the red zone specifically is what the Chargers have been lacking for a majority of this season. If Mike Williams is actually healthy and Mike Williams can actually play and he's not coming in kind of sort of able to play and then hurts himself in the first quarter, I think the Chargers have an opportunity to pull out this victory, especially since they're desperate for wins. As you pointed out earlier in the show, the beast in the East right now in the AFC and the NFC for that matter, the Chargers are going to need to make the playoffs as a wild card. They're going to need to start winning some games. They have the opportunity to win this game. I don't think they do. It definitely goes over. Definitely goes over. I have zero doubt that this game goes over the 52.5 points. And I don't know why that went away. I do think Miami covers a 3-point spread. I got them. Man, 3 points is such a small spread. I'm going to say they don't cover the spread. I'm going to say they win by a field goal. Yeah. So give me the Dolphins, give me the over, and to not cover the spread.
I'm almost with you there. I do think that the Dolphins win this game. Again, this is going to be one of those scenarios. I know that I called myself a hypocrite last week for not taking the home teams in close games like this. However, I'm going to side with Vegas on this one. I think that, these dudes know what they're talking about when they set the favorites here. I just think that Miami's due for a bounce back game after facing, a lockdown defense with an offense that just has so many weapons on it. This just smells like the type of game that Brandon Staley would fail to put his team in a position to win. So, I'm going to take Miami here. I do think that these teams cover that 52.5. I think that both teams can score well into the 30s. I don't think scoring is going to be an issue here, especially with how suspicious both pass defenses are. Miami and the Chargers rank. The Chargers rank probably middle to lower end of the pack, and then the Dolphins are obviously on the low end. However, the rush defense for the Chargers is the second worst in the league. So Jeff Wilson Jr. should have a bounce back game here. I'm taking Miami. I do see like 34, 30, something in that neighborhood there. Smash me the over there.
So do they cover or no?
I said 34-30, so yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
All right. I'm not. 3 points is just too slim of a margin.
I agree, but for whatever reason, again, I'm like looking at this objectively and I'm seeing what I think might happen. And a game-winning field goal at the end of the game is kind of where my head was at. So if you got to kick a game-winning field goal at the end, the most you win by is 3, right? So that's where I was at on that. Okay, I got you. Monday Night Football, Patriots visiting the Cardinals. One of the bigger stories this week was Mac Jones voicing some frustration that they weren't pushing the ball down the field. So I'll let you answer this question since it is your turn to pick anyway. Oh, sorry. Patriots at 6-6, Cardinals at 4-8, 43.5 is the over/under. New England is favored on the road by 1.5 points. But here's the question, right? Is will the Pats throw down the field more with Jones voicing his frustration?
I do. I think that they let it fly here a little bit.
Yes,
when you draft a quarterback in the first round and he starts to get a little frustrated with the offense, I think some changes do get made. However, they have a defensive coordinator currently as their offensive coordinator. And I don't know if you know this or not, Matt Patricia is actually a rocket scientist.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he has a degree to be a rocket scientist. So apparently being a rocket scientist is easier than calling offensive plays in the NFL. Matt Patricia can do one of those things, but not the other. So,
That's funny.
yeah. What was the spread again and the over under?
Over under is 43.5. Spread is New England favored by 1.5.
This is going to be one of those games where I go back to my roots and take the home team here. I'm taking Arizona. I knew that, the New England Patriots defense is very good, particularly against the run. So I do think that James Conner has a tough time getting through that defense. However, DeAndre Hopkins is back healthy. Marquise Brown is back healthy. I think that those two on the outside are going to call out problems for the Patriots defense. And I just don't think that the Patriots offense is skilled enough to keep up outside of Ramondre Stevenson. There's a lot of question marks, very similar to the Giants in the fact that they just don't have the weapons on the outside. Jacoby Myers is probably their only legitimate receiving threat. So I'm taking Arizona to win here. So obviously they cover. And I do think it reaches over. I think, it being a Monday night game, those tend to be a little bit more high scoring. That's kind of where I'm going with that.
I'm a little irritated you took the Cardinals because I'm also taking the Cardinals. For everything that you just said, listen, I know there's the controversy right now. Cliff Kingsbury is kind of on the hot seat because, they, again, 13-4 last year, the one seed going into the playoffs. But I think they just put together a good game plan. Listen, Bill Belichick's obviously great at scheming, everything, but you hit the nail right on the head. Is there's just not enough talent on the offense, and Mac Jones is not Tom Brady. He can't make a Julian Edelman. He can't make a Danny Amendola. He can't make those guys. And until you get somebody of high caliber around him, he's going to continue to be frustrated because he can't push the ball down the field because he's got nobody to run down the field and catch the ball. If you're talking Nelson Aguilar, supposed to be their speed guy, like you're making a huge mistake. Devontae Parker is 33 now, well past his prime. There just isn't enough around Mac Jones for him to continue to be successful, and that's just the reality of the situation. So yeah, I've got the Cardinals here being victorious, and obviously since New England's favorite, I don't need to say whether or not they cover.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game though. That's one of those ones for sure where it could go either way. Truthfully, I do believe that because New England has shown us at times why they're a playoff team. Do you have anything else for the show, Bill?
No, do you have anything?
Yeah. I saw we picked up a couple more viewers on the way. I'd like to say again, go ahead and subscribe if you're on YouTube, like, share on Facebook. If you're on Twitter watching this, hit that like button, hit that retweet. Guys, these are all free and they all take less than a second to do. And it's support. We always thank you for the support. We love, everybody that tunes into our show, whether it's live or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts later after we are done recording. So thank you so much. Call to the Bill pen here to close this game.
Also to assist Ryan there, if you have the opportunity to check out our website, www.bsingsports.com, it's right there across the top of the screen. We have a link tree that is attached to that QR code that we do in our intro. It's at the bottom of the page. Feel free to go to it. And yeah, again, all the support you guys can give us is greatly appreciated. And every single like and follow helps us tremendously. Please don't think that it doesn't go notice because we do notice everything. We have an open chat between the three of us about every time we get a new viewer and stuff like that. So we appreciate it. And we thank you all for that. But that's going to do it here for us on BSing Sports, part of the BSing Network, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. Have a good night.